You are tuned in to a Fireside chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. I'm your host, Lance White. Tonight, Tonight, my guest is Dr. Jens Jerndal. Dr. Jens is a distinguished holistic thinker and futurist. He was born in Sweden, but considers himself a world citizen. His professional experience embraces education, international law, political science, economics, diplomacy, business, astrology, and holistic medicine. His present focus is what he calls the invisible reality and the presently emerging Aquarian paradigm. He's just published a new book titled Cracking the Rainbow Code to Access the Secrets of Creation. So let's welcome this multifaceted paradigm shifter to the show now. Hi, Dr. Jens. How are you?
Hi, Lance. Thank you very much. I'm fine. Very excited to be on your show.
Oh, it's wonderful to have you. You're quite an interesting character. You've done a lot of different things, and I've just finished your book, and I really loved it. It was quite a mind-bending and informationally fulfilling read.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for saying so.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, just before we get into some of the stuff that I wanted to ask you about that's in the book, which seem to be common questions that we all have lately about consciousness and shifting paradigms and the rest, I'm kind of curious what led you to write the book.
Well, in a way, I can say that this book is the summary of more than 50 years of thinking and studying, and it all started when I was studying law at the University of Lund in Sweden. Mm-hmm. I took a course in parapsychology. I was 19 at the time, and to this day I have no idea how it happened, because in my background nothing would suggest that I would think for a second about this. It just didn't exist, period. But I took this course, and it seemed the most natural thing in the world. And I immediately started to explain all these phenomena like telepathy and psychometry and clairvoyance, which is now called remote viewing. In sort of scientific terms, and it seemed to me quite easy to understand it, because telepathy is like a kind of radio, isn't it?
Yes.
And so on. There was one thing, of course, that I couldn't make sort of sense of, and that was precognition, how you could see something or know something that had not yet happened. And of course, thinking about that, I realized that our conception of time is, we don't really know what time is, and that's the big mystery for me, really. I have gotten into that quite a lot, and I have a few different thoughts about that, or explanations, but I haven't quite cracked that code yet.
Did you, I know I read this somewhere, but I had a note where I found it, but it seems that I read somewhere in your book that you had a life-changing experience during the 1970s. Is that accurate or not?
Yes, it is actually. That's when I became, when I realized the fact of reincarnation and the immortality of the soul. And it all happened, in a sort of synchronistic way, without planning anything at all. It just came to me. And it was a series of I traveled to the United States for the first time in my life. And then I came back later the same year, and I traveled to Sri Lanka and Indonesia, which I've done often, also twice during that year. And each of those trips sort of added a piece the puzzle, as it were, and after that, that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yes, well, I totally agree with you. Many people, and quite a few of my guests have had near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. So they actually describe other worlds that they've been to, and they seem to return a changed person, always for the better, more caring about humanity and other people, and less self-centered, and so on.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And I love the paranormal studies. I kind of fell into those about 10 years ago, and I just loved it. Just everything I could read and find, and groups on the internet, and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely a believer. But you mention in your book too the importance of not taking other people's beliefs and thinking for yourself. I think that's really important. Do you want to elaborate on that just a bit?
Well, I think we are in our education, of course, is not set up to make us think for ourselves.
Right.
Well, this is changing, I believe. The new paradigm will require a completely new education, and of course, just the presence of the internet means that the old education is already sort of, it doesn't make any sense any longer. But I lost the thread a little bit. I was always sort of always questioned authorities, even at school, which wasn't very popular, obviously.
I'm with you on that one.
As I grew up, at least, and I think it's still the same thing in Sweden, the impression one has is that, people are not supposed to question anything. They're supposed to sit down in the boat and keep quiet and do as they're told. and it didn't quite fit my personality, so I never did that. And I do think that one of the things we need to introduce in education is to teach people to question, to think for themselves, and creativity, which is another thing that has been really, I think, on purpose, left out of the old educational system.
Oh yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. In fact, if I didn't know better, I would probably be led to believe that the educational system is intentionally being formed in a way so that it doesn't educate unless people are actually getting access to good, solid, truthful information.
But of course, the internet has changed everything.
Oh yeah.
That's probably the greatest piece of the paradigm shift so far, and the world is completely different now from what it was even 20 years ago. And it's going on. I mean, it's continuing, and it's accelerating, I believe. And that is the great paradigm shift, which I'm writing about in my latest book, which I've just finished, which isn't out yet.
What is going to be the title of that book?
Paradigm Pulse: Sensing the Surge of Change.
Ah. Well, there's quite a bit of chatter on the internet now about 2012 and the Mayan calendar and various prophecies that seem to be coming together, including biblical prophecies, that all seem to kind of point in the same direction, and that brings in astrology as well. You've done research in astrology. Do you see the connections in the stars that are aligning in a way that will help us move forward?
Oh, yes. Well, actually, I have, I think I've cracked the code about the Aquarian age. I call it the Aquarian paradigm, and for me, it's a general paradigm that sort of changes our whole outlook, our whole world view. And in my opinion, it started already 240 years ago or so, actually with the U.S. Declaration of Independence, and the whole movement, and then the French Revolution. And it all sort of came together, and that's exactly what I'm explaining in my new book, which isn't out yet, which will be out in a matter of a month or two, I think.
Wonderful.
And so that's what is going on as far as I'm concerned. Now, the Mayan calendars, I haven't really studied them, but I've read a little bit about it. And the interesting thing with at least Carl Johan Calleman's understanding of it, compatriot of mine, actually, is that it is all about the evolution of human consciousness in waves, and sort of accelerating waves, as it were. And that each wave is apparently much shorter than the previous wave. And that we've now reached the end of times, as the Mayans call it. And to me it makes a lot of sense with what we are seeing right now, and with the, shall I say, the Aquarian paradigm taking over, which happens about the same time as far as I can see it, because imagine the difference in human consciousness only, say, 30 years ago, before the internet, before mobile phones, before satellites and all that, and now, where everybody practically from the age of 4 or whenever the children start using the computers nowadays, has practically all information possible, well, not all, but, you know, an enormous amount of information practically at their fingertips, an instant.
Certainly a lot more than what we see is available on the many hundreds of cable channels that we pay for.
Oh my God, yes, don't tell me about that.
I would call that brainwashing more than anything, but there are some fun shows on television, I have to admit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you travel the world. You're living in Argentina right now. I imagine that's a beautiful spot to live. And when you travel to these other countries and cities around the world, doing your lectures and the rest of it, do you notice over time a difference in the level of consciousness or the awakening of the people that you meet during these travels?
Yes, definitely. Now, obviously, it depends a little on the people you surround yourself with, because there have always been conscious people, more or less, but my impression is that it is spreading now, and very, very fast, to the broad masses. You know, thanks